I called Mama. She was so happy she cried. She wants you to have her wedding gown. It's white lace.
Yeah, that's good. I can't get married in your mother's dress.
You are wonderful. Thank you. I've worked hard to become so. I admit it, you are better than I am. Then why are you smiling? Because I know something you don't know. And what is that? I am not offended.
Well, sir, you were a cowardly son of a bitch. You just shot an unarmed man.
Well, he should have armed himself. He's gonna decorate his saloon with my friend.
Boy, those guys in there are on top of things, aren't they?
They don't even know how on point they are.
Not that, neither do they.
And funny enough, that sort of summarizes my day today, that little last clip. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.
So that last clip from that
Yes.
certain 1979 wonderful film.
Shall we see it again?
We may see something similar to that
Okay.
before the show is out. So it was an interesting week at, yes?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about your personal automotive mishaps or troubles.
If anybody has a
travails.
2016 Dodge Hellcat you want to just give me, I'll say your name on the air for the rest of the run of this program. So Keen Cinemas did not get anything new
That's
this week.
true.
So while last week we were saying if you want to see Rules Don't Apply, you might want to see it quickly. It actually did play through the weekend. I'm now going to say if you still want to see it, you should probably see it quickly.
It's actually been getting some pretty good, besides us, been getting some pretty good comments. So I was happy to hear that.
It's interesting that everything it held firm
Right.
for last week, but I have a feeling that this weekend and certainly next week may actually just wipe
Yeah.
out everything that's currently playing
Yes.
there. There's a lot of releases in 2 weeks. So the first two clips that we are going to be presenting are in the form of FYI for those who live outside the Keene area, or for those inside the Keene area who choose to leave town to see movies,
Yes.
of which there's not a small percentage of people who do that. Would you care to begin?
Sure, I'd be happy to. What are we talking about? I have to check. There we go. Since we
Yes.
didn't see any of these, it's difficult after. I won't make a joke about this. This one is about our former First Lady and a woman who has missions and things to be doing after some horrible events rattled the nation. We're going to take a look at what happens with Jackie. So again, I don't, iconically, I mean, she's got the pink dress on and everything like that. And Portman, whom I love, she's a wonderful actress, really looks the role. It's funny at the very end there, which mostly we were hearing the Richard Burton Camelot, obviously in reference to Camelot being the White House when the Kennedys were living there. But I don't recall how Jackie Kennedy sounded. I have to assume that she sounded like that.
I think it sounds pretty close.
It's just kind of weird. It looks like terrific production design. I love. It's not a period piece really, but it kind of is something set back in the '60s. So, if it comes around, I'm looking forward to it. Who knows?
Well, as a Kennedy assassination enthusiast isn't quite the word.
Okay, right.
Someone who finds that whole incident interesting and fascinating. Not that this is an investigation
Yeah, I
into
don't
that,
think it gets into
but this
that,
is sort of peeking around a corner of what you've normally seen
Right.
as far as all that. Speaking of things that are horrifying,
Yes.
We'll move on to the next FYI clip.
Totally
frankly.
unrelated.
This is a film I've never heard of, and I am going from memory based on what I just glanced over my shoulder at a moment ago. So here's a generic intro for a film I may never see. Aaron Eckhart stars in a film involving a scientist delving where scientists dare not delve deeply, and dastardly demonic forces descend upon him when he finds it to be, frankly, with the summation and incarceration and or invocation of evil incarnate.
So you and I both like horror movies. We know that, but
In theory, I do.
And I like Aaron Eckhart. And again, this is PG-13, so little kids. You don't have to. I mean, little kids, I suppose. You want to be careful of, but so it's not R, so you don't have to worry about that being an issue. And in particular, that from the producers of Insidious, Paranormal Activity, which
That all isn't necessarily a good thing.
I think they're middle range.
Yeah.
But so again, one of these that it wasn't available at Keen Cinemas, so we didn't get a chance to see it. But I'll keep my eye out for it.
I would like to think that Aaron Eckhart is portraying that this is an unofficial sequel, unnamed sequel, like you don't know until halfway through. It is a sequel to him when he played Sexy Kung Fu Frankenstein.
Right,
So I
exactly.
would like to think that this is Sexy Kung Fu Frankenstein Exorcist, and that way perhaps, like any moment now, you're like, oh, he's going to whip those blades out again.
Right.
But until
If
I
only
see it,
Marin knew jiu-jitsu, then we would have been in good shape.
Kung Fu solves everything.
Yes.
It doesn't solve these movies not playing locally, but. Next up are a series of films, the majority of which we've seen, that are available to you and yours on home video. And
However you get them, we don't know. But after you take off, you get up in the morning and you do everything that needs to be done, and you're heading out for work. Out you go, you close the door. Don't you kind of wonder what's going on back there? It's always kind of a mystery when you have to find out about the secret life of pets.
I missed this in the theaters.
Oh, did you really?
This was one of those weekends where I was away and I only had time to see one or two, and there were like
Okay.
4, so I didn't manage to watch it. So I
Well,
rely on your opinion.
Personally, I don't think you missed all that much. Again, for kids, and that's usually what, as you know and as they know, that's usually how we play these kids' movies. Is there anything for adults? Is it purely for kids? As I recall, in the theaters, the kids were enjoying this quite a bit. It's very silly, very goofy. I like this style of animation. There's like the Polar Express, BFG, kind of almost realistic,
Uncanny Valley.
scary to me kind of animation that wouldn't be appropriate for this. I enjoyed the animation, lots of pretty colors. I felt overall this really tried, and I've been surprised post-movie that we, especially as we're coming along with the holidays, that we haven't seen loads of toys and things like that made out after this. I don't think this was all that popular, but as I was watching this, and I'll admit to going into this with this kind of predisposition, I was feeling this was done purely for marketing reasons. Let's create a silly, cute bunny that's really wiseacre and put him out as a stuffed toy. Yeah, thank you. And so I felt that a lot of these characters were like that. The big, huge, cuddly dog and the little, silly, kind of smarmy dog. So it took me as, I'll call myself an adult, a while to get used to them. I thought the story was good enough and interesting enough, and the characters were enough differentiated that it kept me going. I think this is clearly for not just kids, but younger kids. But Secret Life of Pets was okay.
Speaking of Secret Lives.
Secret Lives, you never know about Secret Lives. If you're the CIA's top international espionage spy killer and you can just do anything with your little pinky. Trouble is, you want to find out all the secrets of your past. Well, if you hadn't found out in the first 3 movies, maybe you'll find out now because your name is now Jason Bourne.
In secret hands, hidden camera is taking his picture right now. Suddenly you're discovered.
So,
Yes. I didn't see this.
I'm a huge fan of the first one. And
yeah.
the second and third ones, they continue it along, keeps it going. But again, it's kind of for marketability reasons. You don't want to be too unique because the audience goes back to sequels because they want to see the same thing. I was actually listening to, it was an audiobook on the making of the Back to the Future trilogies. And Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis didn't want to do a sequel because, they want to do new stuff. But they knew and they realized, and I thought this put a very specific point to sequels, is that the audience wants the same thing but different. So how do you do that? And not to push Back to the Future, but I thought it was extremely clever way to do it.
Go back into the original movie
right.
again.
So we're with the Jason Bourne trilogy originally, and this is the 4th one. They do continue it. It kind of strings it out an awful lot. I thought this, while I was looking forward to it, and you see a lot of the same characters back, obviously Damon is back, I thought I was wondering, isn't this just, you take the 3 movies and you cut it together down to 1 movie and this is Jason Bourne? It was really the exact same thing. How many times do we need to see a feature-length film where Damon is, kicking everybody and spinning around and breaking their heads and trying to find something out about his past. It's the same old thing. If you like that, I think, you get it, obviously, but I just, I hate to say this, I'm getting a little tired of the Jason Bournes. I'd love to see him as, to forget about his past and just go on some more missions, because I think those are fun. They're very much like you get all the JBs, Jack Bauer, James Bond, Jason Bourne. I enjoy those. I like Damon. I just want to see something different, and this didn't really give it to me.
I avoided it. I think it was an opportunity where I wasn't able to see it in the theater. I don't know if it did. Did this not play at the Keene Cinemas?
I think I had to go out of town for it.
I kind of gave up on this series because to me they're unwatchable. They're the movies.
The action.
The Paul Greengrass, who just ruined. He planted the seed that devastated action cinema for me. And I don't need to see a camera shaking all over like a spastic monkey is holding it while it's having a jolt attack when somebody's on the phone. It's just calm down. So I instead choose to watch a film like the one that I'm about to talk to you, these kind folks about. I'm going to look at them now.
Okay, please do.
So up next we have a martial arts film from the land of the not Rising Sun, because that's Japan and this is China. Although in the scheme of things, that section of the world. You have some legendary tough guys get together to defend a city from a whole lot of bad guys with guns. They answer the call of heroes.
This is
Merry Christmas, Daddy.
for me. It's for you.
Your cup of tea, so I'll let you take over.
Where else will you see in modern cinema an urnalanche like that? Because it was just a sea of urns falling down. So I love this kind of stuff. They're not all great. Some are better than others. Some fall victim to the things that make me repulsed about American action cinema too. That disease sadly has spread around the world as how you're supposed to do it. Fortunately, sometimes people remember how to do it.
This one didn't look like that.
This one remembered how to do it. There were a couple moments where I wish they were a little farther back or they cut it a little slower. But the basic premise of this is a very bad government general kind of guy goes into a small town and he's just happy to kill people left and right. And he is caught doing that and held prisoner in a jail to be judged in this little village. And the army comes back and says, you need to let him go. And they're like, he just killed somebody. And they say, if we come back tomorrow and he's not free, we're gonna take you all out. So then they try to round up the titular heroes to defend. It's a siege movie in a sense, to defend this little walled village from all these guys with guns who want to get this one extremely bad guy.
How similar, it looked a lot like the Seven Samurai almost. Even the way it was shot. I mean, it looks really beautiful. But
I can't imagine it wasn't influenced by that in some way.
Okay.
It feels in some ways like a spaghetti western. It feels in some ways like Seven Samurai. You have this group of people who come together and they each have a specialty to do their thing. There's a female hero in this who does what I can only describe as wicker foo. She has a piece of like a wicker basket that is broken, and if you know, wicker can be sharp, and she uses it in an incredibly deadly and brutal way. And I was just like, I had to rewind it and watch it again. I'd never seen that before. Action choreography by Sammo Hung, who's one of the greats of my lifetime, who's moving more behind the scenes now. His son is actually in this movie, and it's fierce and magnificent kung fu badassery to the highest of the highest degree. It is very interestingly designed action that you can comprehend and that makes you laugh sometimes. Sometimes it's funny. It's Chan-style action. Sometimes it's very brutal. It's funny because the movie starts out on a very light tone and it's very funny.
Well, and funny, intentionally funny, right?
Yes. Oh, it's
because we've
silly.
seen some stuff from some other things that aren't quite so intentional.
Something that we may be reviewing next week is a whole lot of unintentional funny.
Okay.
No, it's intentionally funny, and then the tone gets very dark when you see the bad guy and what he does. And I always say any revenge movie needs to have an act that is so heinous and repulsive that you can't wait to see the good guys just take apart the bad guys.
Right.
And that's what this does. So it builds up to this grand epic. Everybody's taking down everybody and defending the city, and as you see, there's a fight on top of this mountain of urns as they collapse. And it's CGI and it's a little so-so, but I thought it was very funny. I thought it was very exciting. The story held me the whole time. The actors are all good. If you're into this sort of thing in the modern era, you recognize we've actually reviewed some of the other movies some of these people have been in. So I really liked it a lot. This is one that I'm keeping and I want to lend to people to show them. So it's out now from Wellgo USA on Blu-ray and maybe DVD and probably on demand and all that, as is The Modern Way. Call of Heroes. Very
Excellent.
good.
Very good. Well, we have a group. They may not be heroes. Depends on whether or not you like them. But Mike Birbiglia up-and-coming comedian. I actually saw him in New York. Very funny guy. And he and a group of his buddies are a comedy troupe in New York City, trying to make their way through life and comedy. And you don't want to question yourself. Just head right on through. Whatever happens, don't think twice.
$3? Incredible. When you're thinking Arby's, you can't think about anything else.
So looks like a semi-documentary, but it's not really a documentary. It's a mockumentary, I guess. But about behind-the-scenes comedy. We've seen, we've seen stand-up, punchline, things like that. So I get the sense that it's something similar to that. Again, it's sort of not a vanity project for Birbiglia, but he's been behind it and really pushing it quite a bit. So if you're a fan of his, I think you're going to get some of his type of humor and looks into other things.
And this is not currently available for rental, you say?
You have, it's like on Amazon, you can stream it, but it's not priced like, $5 to a rental, you got to buy it. Okay. So you have to buy the whole thing. So
that is our consumer advocate moment. The consumer advocate
So if you're a big fan of Mike's, go for it.
What's $30 between friends and fans? So up next, speaking of films that are now available to stream and or rent and or purchase in multiple formats, we have the tale of I would say not a government whistleblower who meets with an aspiring journalist, a young journalist, to spill the beans and hopefully not find out if there's a hell below.
So again, you've got so many connections, and you get these the studios sending us stuff, either actual physical copies or screeners and things like this. And you'd sent this to me weeks ago. They were really on top of it for us, and I forgot all about it. So I'm going to have to turn this over to you because it looks really interesting.
Luckily, I didn't forget. It is interesting.
Okay.
So it's very small. It's an interesting tone this film has. It's a very small cast. It is 4 people that you see on screen, maybe. It's set out in the rolling, grainy plains, the wide open spaces. So it's got. I'm a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for wide shots of expanses, and it has this in abundance. This woman calls this meeting with this journalist, and she's very paranoid and doesn't want to give her name, and doesn't want to give any pertinent details, and is very specific about what kind of information she'll give out and how. And it's in the widest open space in the middle of nowhere, but she's sure that they are going to come together. And she's somebody who works as like an analyst or something in the CIA or somewhere in the government. And what you have, I don't want to say much about what happens in this film.
Do we get the sense that she's nuts or that she's just truly rightly paranoid?
You ultimately find out where the truth lies in terms of her paranoia.
Okay.
I don't want to go very far with it.
Okay.
But the way her paranoia is and the way this film is played out, it makes nothing scary, if that makes any sense. She has so much paranoia, and you have these long, wide shots that are, the cameraman's in the back seat of the car as they drive up and down the hills, and you are sure that over the next rise are going to be guys with guns or black helicopters. At least that's when I watched it. I found it very tense and I was very nervous the way it was so quiet. It's almost too quiet, that kind of thing. And eventually it plays out. Now, some people might not like the style of the film because it's handheld, but it's not offensively handheld.
Okay.
The dialogue is very low key. If I listed all of the elements of this film on paper and I read it back, if I hit myself in the head with the hammer and I read it back, I might be like, I don't want to watch that. But for me, this really worked. It's let's say an art house movie, so the people who watch a Bourne film might not get into this, or a Fast and the Furious might not get into this. But I really did get into this. It's not very long. It's maybe 90 minutes. And the ending I had to kind of rewatch once. It seemed a little obtuse to me. I couldn't quite understand it. But I liked the sense of dread and the vibe that it gave the whole time.
Okay.
So if you're up for something adventurous and you can't, keep too many characters straight in your head, this is a fine film to watch. It's called If There's a Hell Below, and it is out now.
Well, speaking of films with small casts, if you happen to be a little kid and you don't really quite trust that big house that's up there, and you're thinking that the old guy who runs the place, something nefarious is going on inside there. But you'd seen it before, and you want to see it really nice and sweet looking and pretty colors and amazingly good looking. You want to pick up Phantasm Remastered.
celebrate. We do not have generic funerals. Everybody's experience has to be different.
Not a whole lot of movies you can call classic.
I love this movie.
Phantasm is so terrific.
I first saw this as a kid on Channel 38 out of Boston. They used to run it on Saturday afternoon.
And did you sleep for the next month?
Well, no, this is what I love about this. We talked about this when this was a limited theatrical release recently, and we didn't really have time to talk about the movie per se. We just talked about the quality. We have time today. Phantasm, I saw it as a kid, and it has something that I love in horror movies that very few do or even try to do, and it's what I call daylight horror. It is horror that happens in the bright in the middle of the daytime, and there's something creepy coming at you, and it is so effectively done that it is scary. Most films couch
You're in a
their
graveyard
horror.
in the bright time. Oh my God!
And there's all kinds of weird stuff that goes on in the middle of the day in this movie. And I watched it as a kid on my grandparents' couch on a sunny summer afternoon, so that ties in with my head. And that's one of the reasons I loved It Follows so much, is that did daylight horror. It did very disturbing things in the cold light of day.
Right.
So what is Phantasm about? Boy, it's a weird movie.
It certainly is.
You have this young boy who's in it. It's everything that you loved as a kid in the 70s. It's dirt bikes, it's hot chicks, it's hot cars, it's rock and roll, it's guns, it's hijinks, and murder. And this kid, his brother has just died, and his other brother that's who he's living with. Their parents are gone, and it's him discovering something weird is going on at the cemetery. Like maybe they're not burying the bodies, or they're doing something else with them at the cemeteries. And there are these little Jawa-like characters that run around, and there are these flying silver balls that if they get you, they drill into you, and it's not pleasant. And there's the tall man, played by Angus Scrimm, who's this very strange guy with a lot of strength who just pops up everywhere and is super creepy. So it's this kid trying to figure out what's going on. And this movie, it's horror, it's kind of science fiction.
Yeah.
It's kind of an action movie at times. It's funny at times.
And that's the thing. It mixes all of these together.
And did you see this when it originally came out?
Yes, absolutely.
And what kind of a mind bender was this when it was new?
What I thought and what I took away from Phantasm, I was expecting, another scary, horror movie set at a funeral home, whoop-de-doo. And it was as you refer to it, kind of what we'll call the sci-fi bent, the element to it, that where do these little Jawa-like creatures come from? Holy cow, there's this weird teleportation thing going on. What the hell is the tall man? It's got all of these mixtures. And this isn't a terribly long movie, but it feels so packed and dense.
Which I think is what allowed them to make multiple sequels, just from the seeds that are planted with this.
But it's not like at the end of the movie, I wonder, I'm missing information about this. This is a startlingly well-structured film that, as you say, touches on all these bases, and that's what I remember from its original screening. And again, one of the things that I love about what they're able to do now is in taking a look at the remastered version, I think it's got to look. It strikes me as looking even better than it could have originally. I don't know how they do a lot of that stuff.
That is interesting. Sometimes you'll watch these remastered versions of older films, and you're like, wait, this isn't supposed to
look
looks
even
good.
better than stuff today.
So what we have here, Phantasm has been in and out of print for a long time. I think until this week, you really couldn't get this on DVD or Blu-ray domestically. I think it's been out of print for a little while. That's fixed. And what you have is J.J. Abrams' company was actually behind the remastering of this in 4K, so they went back to the original elements, and it's the best Phantasm will ever have looked or sounded until 8, 12, or 14K, or 16K, or 48K, or whatever comes along. It's a new Blu-ray release, and so this is interesting. We didn't actually get a physical copy of this to review. We reviewed it via a streaming link, so I can't speak as to what the extras on this disc are. If they ported over the old extras, which I kind of hope or not. But at any rate, it's ultimately, what do you watch when you get a disc? Over and over again. It's the movie itself.
Sure.
It's one of my favorite movies. I can't recommend it highly enough. It is so unusual. You don't necessarily need to watch any of the sequels to have the full experience. They never planned on making more after the original. And it doesn't explain enough to make it weird and creepy and give it a really high repeat value, because you watch it again, you're like, maybe I'll see something now that explains what that little thing was. The music is really good. It's got a good, Fred Morrow, I believe, did the sort of synthy, piano-y score that's very memorable, shall we say.
It's as identifiable as the Tubular Bells from The Exorcist, or the Jason stuff. everything. What I get struck about in rewatching this, and it's okay, yeah, it's a horror
very
movie.
70s.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very
79.
70s. But was how all of it really comes together as well as it does.
So that's out now.
Yes.
Also out now, it's Bookends. It's Bookends. Do you want to do it or should I?
It's all yours.
Oh, hey, it's all me. So, speaking of Phantasm, we have what is purported to be the final chapter in the Phantasm saga. Below these many years later, almost the entire cast is back to do it again for the first time, for the last time. Phantasm Ravager.
No, we can. We're going to make these families extremely happy at the worst moments of their lives.
That movie, you say what you will, that movie's got a lot of balls.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah, spheres, sorry. So, my understanding is that this started life as a web series. This was going to be a web series, Ravager,
right.
On the internet many years ago. And ultimately, it wound up becoming a feature film, not directed by Don Coscarelli, so you know, directed by somebody who'd been a long time member of the Phantasm production team. Coscarelli sort of gave it his blessing or produced it or something like that. So you have almost the entire original cast. You have Reggie back, you have A. Michael Baldwin back, you have his older brother, whose name I'm, as big a fan of as I am, you'd think I'd remember. Sorry. You have the lady in lavender from the original movie who doesn't look that much older.
Right.
You know, they shot the original like around 1978. You're talking many, many decades later, and she looks...
I mean, the kid grew up, but everybody else, holy cow.
And it is interesting. It probably helps a lot if you've seen the rest of the sequels for this movie to make any sense.
Right.
Like, I don't think this is for the casual viewer at all. I don't think this would make any sense at all if you hadn't seen the last several. I have seen them all. I don't remember the last 3 and 4 very well. I didn't really like 3 and 4 very much.
I'm the same. I've seen them,
so
but
they're doing a lot of references to that movie, and it's like, I guess it's an interesting structure you have here. It's the idea is either Reggie is still fighting the tall man and his minions to the death,
right?
Or he is an old man with dementia in a home, and he has imagined all of what happened in the movies and
everything,
and
all of the movies, right?
All the movies,
yeah.
And the kid from the original is now an adult, obviously, and he's helping him through this. So this movie cuts back and forth between those two worlds, pretty cleverly. It does, to me, get a little tiring after a while because it's like any movie that jumps back and forth. I'm starting to get invested in the world I'm in, and then suddenly I'm looking at something else again.
Right.
It felt pretty disjointed, and knowing that this started life as a web series, I really want to do some research and find out what was this supposed to be. Was this just trying to salvage, did they just shoot a little extra footage to salvage what they had?
Right.
Because under the end credits, there are all these clips from scenes that are not in the movie that look like whole other sequences and time, places,
but did
and
they
stuff.
look as good? Because I couldn't have imagined that a web series, no insult to web series, would have had the production value that the rest of this film had.
It comes and goes. Like, there are times where it's clearly shot on video and kind of smeary, and some of the effects are pretty bad.
Right.
And there are other times that it looks pretty good.
Right.
So I think Ravager is really for the fans. It is a nice final go-round, although...
Yeah.
Really? I don't know if it's the final go-round. It might be the final go-round for these characters. It's nice to see, Reggie Bannister again, who's a super cool guy, and to see the whole cast reunited. It's pretty heartfelt, some of the final scenes in the film. I did watch it, again, we saw this streaming originally, and I have wanted to see it again to try to get my head around it all again. Maybe watch them all 5 in a row again. But not for the casual fan, I would say.
I think that's my plan, is that even since our original watching of this, the link that they sent us to stream months ago, I've been planning on, and once I have some free time on the holidays, for a holiday, how about a holiday fest of Phantasm? I'm going to do that and go back, because I know I've seen all of them, but I don't recall 3 or 4, what exactly happened. And I do think that this one, as you say, feels like it and not as a money-grubbing type of thing, that this was made for the fans. Either try to wrap it up or to tie up a bunch of loose ends and things like that. And so, but I felt I was lost. I agree completely that while the transitions back and forth between these two worlds that Reggie seems to be living in were very clever, you're right that I'd get invested, and then they'd cut, and I'd go, oh, yeah.
You're like, where was that? Oh, this is where we are here.
Right.
Okay.
So the whole film, I felt like there's this overarching structure that is, as you say, seems really pretty clever, but I either wasn't given enough information or I just had too much trouble trying to piece it together. So I think it either fails in that respect, but I have enough respect for the rest of the films that I'm going to give it another shot and see if I can piece that together. As you say, when tomorrow, when the Blu-rays and DVDs actually come out, I too am hoping, because you're always one that watches the extras, and I'm jealous of your either remembering or your time to do that. But I will on this one, because I too am hoping that it'll tie together some loose ends.
So those are out this week.
Yep.
DVD, Blu-ray, certainly, streaming on demand, blah, blah, blah,
Oh, yeah.
from Well Go USA. Now that's all we have officially to talk about. But I want to do something I've never done on the show before.
Okay.
And that's sing. No.
And tap. He tapped
you don't want that. I wanted to mention another release.
Yes.
And it's kind of shilling.
Okay.
But it's interesting. So, and I even have product because I had to buy it myself. So we have this disc. Are you getting any glare on that? Is there glare? Are you getting any glare? Is there glare on that? Hi. Grindhouse Releasing has this out. It's a little.
Okay.
It's a heartfelt. Speaking of gifts for the holidays, it's a movie called I Drink Your Blood. It's a movie from the early '70s that features hippies who turn rabid and descend upon a small town. It's kind of like a zombie movie. It's not that great for my taste.
But I understand that the crew are just terrific.
Well, that's what's interesting. So this originally was released on a double bill with a movie called, this is I Drink Your Blood, a movie called I Eat Your Skin, which is a retitling of an early 60s black and white, almost like a Bond spoof about zombies on an island, like old-style zombies, like, jungle drum zombies, which I always thought was funny because early 70s audiences who are in for a gore double feature, and the second feature is this creaky old black and white thing,
right.
which I think is actually the better movie. So Grindhouse Releasing has put these out on Blu-ray, DVD, and they've souped up the extras from the previous release they had. There's a reason I'm bringing this up. They souped up the extras and they gave you additional movie features and special features and all that, one of which is my friend Harry Guerro, who runs Exhumed Films out of Philadelphia, has prints of these films and ran them as a recreation of the original double feature at the Mahoning Drive-In, where I spend my weekends in Lehighton, Pennsylvania every year. And they had us shoot, or Harry thought it would be a good idea, to shoot video of just that event, the fact that this drive-in is on film showing this double feature again. So the footage I shot there was sent off to Bob Markowski, who's the head of Grindhouse Releasing and who's Sam Raimi's editor of choice and edits movies and TV in Hollywood. And he edited my footage, and it's on this Blu-ray.
Okay.
So if you want to see what kind of footage a schmo like this, and apparently I'm in it too, so I've been told.
You haven't seen it yet?
I haven't even seen it. I'm going to watch it tonight. If you want to see me on a Blu-ray extras and what my camera work is like, and what a very much more talented man than I can do with my camera work, then I Drink Your Blood is out now via all the usual suspects and sources.
There you go.
Also, I wanted to mention that this weekend I was in Poughkeepsie, New York, for the 14th Hudson Horror Show. It's a movie marathon that they've been doing 14 times now, and Chris and the gang that put it on are just wonderful and amazing. And they have it's a little discount strip mall multiplex, and they take over 2 theaters and they show 6 horror movies in a row from noon to midnight, roughly. They have vendors with T-shirts and merchandise and movies and paraphernalia and all that other stuff in the lobby.
Cool.
It's wonderful. This is my 3rd time going now, and I love it. And they ran, let's see if I can recall, all on film with vintage movie trailers between each one. And they do tons of prize giveaways and trivia. I got a El Rey Network prize pack with T-shirts and stuff like that. I Spit in Your Grave.
Okay.
Classy way to start the day.
Yes, isn't it?
Death Race 2000.
Yep.
A favorite of mine. A secret film, which we don't talk about. That's the rules. You don't talk about what it is. People who are there know, and people who are not there don't. But everybody was very, very pleased with what the secret feature was. The Hitcher.
Yep, one of my favorites.
The Howling, and RoboCop.
Cool.
Which is a really strong lineup. And both theaters were sold out, so you had about 300-something people who were in it to win it for the whole day.
Jeez.
And it's just a blast. So I would say if you are interested in this crazy kind of stuff like I am, look up Hudson Horror on Facebook or on, I think, hudsonhorror.com, and they'll announce their next show. I think they do one in May, and then they do shows at the Yonkers Alamo Draft House, where I sometimes go.
Fun.
And due to my automotive misadventures.
Yes.
That might be the last one of these things I do for a
You're
while.
not going.
So you may see my shoes getting more and more worn down. Any news from your end? It's about the end of the semester for film studies.
It is. We'll have a finals week next week. I guess the cool thing to think about is spring training starts in about 3 months.
Does it now?
Yes, it does.
And are you lobbying to make the Chicago Cubs the official baseball team of Cinemaniacs?
I was going to do that relative to here to Cheshire TV, but I found out that our board has no sense of humor.
No, none at all. No.
So-
I'm just an observer, so I have no sway whatsoever.
Yes.
Well, I guess if that's all that we want to talk about, I could tell them about all the other movies that I bought on Black Friday weekend. I have several of which are on my desk right now.
That's true.
Oh boy, what a wise thing to do when you have to buy a new car and have no money. Let's just buy a bunch of movies. That'll soothe it. Until next time, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.